So instead of having an official story, because we've handled the business in a public setting and we've had that dialogue open and we've provided the residents with the documentation of exactly what went down. If you don't do it that way, then this person hears this story and that person hears a different story, and then there's 4 different stories. None of them are accurate, and so now there's a lot of finger pointing that doesn't do anybody any good. When at the end of the day, we could have handled it just simply by, making sure all of our processes are on point and that we're doing the things, that we need to do the way that we need to do them. And, when a mistake happens, you just address it. How did it happen? How do we prevent it from happening in the future? And how do we correct it? Boom. Done.
Everything's public record, right?
Mm-hmm.
100%. There's outside of employee home addresses and stuff like that, like private information, but
right. Pretty much everything is going to be, everything will eventually be a public record. Some stuff can be redacted. I mean, obviously, the township has everybody's social security number. You're not getting those.
Right.
That kind of stuff. Yes. Personal identifying information, HIPAA stuff, medical stuff that's at the township, on different people. That stuff would be redacted out before you would get
business in particular, like every invoice, absolutely. Every penny,
100%.
Like all the money in the bank, like all that stuff's all 100% public record.
Correct.
So it's real difficult for any fuckery with that is, I guess,
as long as people are paying attention.
Yeah.
And that's, like I said, that's the big thing, because ultimately it's our responsibility as elected officials to do our jobs, but who holds us accountable? The state, in my experience, again, the audit processes are there, and it's not that anybody's doing anything nefarious or anything along those lines. It's just that they're not going to catch every little thing. And, the prosecutor's office will give us guidance, but they're not going to step in and referee, you have to do things this way. They're just going to say, like, here's the law.
Yeah.
You should follow it, but nobody's going to stand there and make sure that we do. That's where it comes down to an involved community that pays attention to what their elected officials are doing, both in the way that they conduct the business and how they spend the money and how they communicate.
How do you feel? This might be a little bit of a loaded question. Well, let's go for it.
Yeah.
How do you feel that you differ from the other 2 trustees? Like what's different about your, obviously the 3 of you work together, and I mean, in my mind is funny, and in watching some of the meetings and stuff, I've heard some public feedback of they expect you guys to be buddies and get along and drink beers together and kumbaya. Yeah. But in my opinion, I think I would rather have 3 people that disagree on most things and discuss it. That's my opinion. But so I'd just as an aside, but I guess kind of circling back to the question, just a self-reflection on yourself, how do you feel you differ from the 2 of them?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is what you highlighted right there, right? We do get a lot of feedback that it's like, I wish you guys could all just, be friends. And it's like, why? It's not about being enemies. It's not about disliking them. I don't think, I don't dislike either of them as people. I hope they don't me. But we do have disagreements on things. And I think where we really differ is that I think that, especially when it comes to township business and the way that we're going to conduct those things, it should be open. It should all kind of be laid out there, good and bad, and yeah, it sucks sometimes to be able to have to sit up there in front of everybody and say hey, I dropped the ball on this one. Nobody does it on purpose, but it's no fun, to take that heat. But that's what you sign up for, in my opinion, when you're an elected official. One of the other big things that we disagree on is, and I think I probably hold a little bit of a outside of the mainstream opinion with most people in elected officials on this is, I don't think it's funny because I say that the residents need to be informed and pay attention, but by and large, I don't think that ultimately that's what they want to do with a Monday night. Is come to a township meeting.
No, they probably don't.
Right. So if a resident comes,
unless you're a retired 32-year-old school teacher who just wants to go fucking yell at people.
But that's the thing. But if they're going to take their time to come to a meeting, we owe it to them to have the discussions and let them see what's going on. And then if they want to speak. That's we're here to listen to you. And I think too many times, it's not fun to have somebody, to stand up at the podium and tell you that they think you're an idiot, but it's going to happen, so you just have to kind of take it. And I think that's, the two big differences are, one on just really trying to hammer down, every last little thing, the details are what matter. And I don't think that the other two kind of share that same concern or that same, emphasis on those. As long as the big stuff's being handled, then maybe the details aren't quite so important. And then the other one is really just, the amount of transparency and communication with the public. I mean, I think some people would probably tell you that they'd rather I didn't communicate as much as I do. And sometimes they're probably right,
in public, or you mean like social media included? Like
social media mostly, because it does. I mean, I think it's even no matter how aware we are of, the dangers of social media and how easy it is to just fire off a message that you would never say sitting down and talking to people. But then the other thing too is even like one of the first things that I really pushed for, and I have to own because I haven't delivered on it as much, but getting the pushback that I got, I really advocated for the board. We hired an administrative assistant for the township to be open for the residents to come in, but that's kind of a Monday through Friday normal business hour type of thing.